The story begins with a bus hijacking carried out by a group of masked criminals. One of them points a gun at Iridasu Yuta and demands that he put his hands above his head. Yuta follows the command. The Telesis news station broadcasts the hijacking live, reporting that the armed group is currently heading toward Tokyo. Multiple police cars arrive and begin chasing the hijacked bus. Suddenly, a motorcycle crashes into the side mirror of one of the police cars and speeds past the convoy. A passenger on the bus begs one of the criminals to let him go, offering a large sum of money. However, instead of listening, the criminal fires his weapon, causing the money to fly out the bus window. Hearing the gunshot, the motorcyclist quickly accelerates, closing in on the bus. Meanwhile, Hikidatani Ito watches the hijacking unfold through the live news broadcast. Sitting beside Yuta is Chichibu Rabara, who seems to be focused on her device. Curious, Yuta asks her what she is doing, but Rabara tells him to be quiet. The person riding the motorcycle is Narujino Mikatan. She manages to get ahead of the bus and blocks its path. As the bus approaches, she launches herself into the air, smashes through the front windshield, and lands inside. Without hesitation, she delivers a powerful kick to one of the criminals, sending him flying out of the bus and crashing onto her motorcycle. Mikatan recites a chant to transform into Strange Juice, squeeze out the wicked soul, to guard the darkened heart. The hero of justice, Strange Juice, has arrived. In an instant, she transforms into a superhero-like figure, leaving Yuta completely stunned. Armed with a staff shaped like a soda straw, she begins her attack. Ito continues watching everything unfold through the news. One of the criminals orders the others to take her down. They all begin firing at Strange Juice, but none of the bullets hit her. She dodges and deflects them effortlessly. Then she leaps into action, striking one of the criminals with her staff and continuing to take out the rest one by one. Rabara yells out, warning that there is still one more criminal behind Strange Juice, the bus driver. Strange Juice manages to stop the driver from stabbing her. As the bus begins to lose control, Yuta jumps from his seat but is thrown backward when the vehicle hits a barrier. Strange Juice also loses her balance. She quickly calls out to Rabara to take the wheel. Rabara is shocked that Strange Juice knows her name but rushes toward the driver's seat anyway. She steps on the brake only to realize it is not working. The bus will not stop. Just then, a voice comes through from Daihatsu Meika, who introduces herself as Pumpkin Chain. Strange Juice expresses her frustration that Pumpkin Chain did not help earlier. Meika explains there was a slight connection issue, but has now been resolved. She says she will stop the bus by activating a tire killer at the toll gate. Strange Juice asks how long it will take. Pumpkin Chain replies, 3 seconds. Strange Juice signals everyone on board to hold on tight. The bus eventually comes to a stop after crashing into the barrier. News reports confirm the bus has finally stopped and wonder if there were any survivors. Thankfully, all passengers make it out safely. Strange Juice even manages to restrain the bus driver. She then returns to her normal form. The front door of the bus cannot be used due to the crash, so Mikatan leads everyone out through the back exit. But as she turns around, someone suddenly points a gun at the back of her head. Just as she suspected, the person behind everything finally steps forward, Teruoka Ryudo. Although Ryudo had stayed seated the whole time, Rabara walks over and asks what he is doing. Without warning, Ryudo strikes Rabara in the stomach with his elbow, knocking her unconscious. He then orders Mikatan to kneel and put her hands behind her head. Mikatan asked what Ryudo was planning to do. Ryudo said the troublemakers had to be eliminated and Mikatan would be the first one he would take out. But as he noticed a mark on the back of her neck, he suddenly stopped talking. Mikatan asked why he was hesitating and not pulling the trigger. Meanwhile, Yuthan woke up and saw Mikatan being held at gunpoint, but his eyes were accidentally drawn toward the waistband of Rabara's underwear. Just when Ryudo was about to shoot, Yuthan activated his powers and slammed into Ryudo, throwing him out of the bus. Both of them fell into the river and Mikatan quickly jumped in to save Yuthan, who was sinking to the bottom. Yuthan later woke up on the riverbank asking if Mikatan was the one who had rescued him. As the wind blew hard, Mikatan's skirt lifted slightly, revealing her underwear. Yuthan accidentally saw it, which instantly made his face blush and caused a nosebleed. He fainted again. Mikatan panicked and tried to wake Yuthan up, but he wouldn't respond. Just then, a strange energy entered Yuthan's body and pushed his spirit out. When Yuthan opened his eyes, a cat was suddenly standing in front of him, telling him that his spirit had been separated from his body. Shocked, Yuthan looked around and realized he was in his own apartment. He immediately asked how the cat could talk and knew so much about him. The cat told him to calm down. Yuthan was even more stunned when he looked down and saw that he no longer had legs. His form now was completely spiritual. The cat introduced himself as Chirinosuke, a fellow spirit like Yuthan. Chirinosuke reassured him that he wasn't dead yet. Then he invited Yuthan to watch something on a laptop, but when he turned it on, an awkward cat video accidentally played first. Chirinosuke then pulled up a live feed of room 103, Yuthan's own room. Chirinosuke and Yuthan were currently in room 203, directly above it. They saw someone walk into the room, and when the camera angle changed, it became clear that the person in room 103 was actually Yuthan's body. Yuthan was shocked to see himself. Chiranosuke explained that this was a Nika live stream from Mekaniko, which meant everything they were seeing was happening in real time. Suddenly, Chiranosuke jumped hard on the floor, and in the video, Yuthan's body reacted to the sound from the room above. Confused, Yuthan tried to understand how this was all possible. He floated through the wall and down the hallway, though he still hadn't fully gotten the hang of his spirit form. He accidentally phased through the floor and ended up in front of room 103. When he tried to go through the door, he was suddenly thrown back. He couldn't understand why he couldn't enter. Chiranosuke explained that it was because of a barrier. There were charms around the room designed to ward off spirits. Frustrated, Yuthan had no idea who would put such things up. Chiranosuke told him that whoever had possessed his body must have placed them. Chiranosuke then explained that Yuthan's body hadn't just been left behind, someone had actually taken it over. As a result, Yuthan's spirit had been forced out. Yuthan was distracted for a moment when he saw Chiranosuke casually sipping sake. Chiranosuke didn't really want to explain why. The important thing, he said, was that Yuthan needed to find something called the Nandala Gondala. Yuthan had no idea what that was, so Chiranosuke explained. It was a sacred book from ancient India, said to contain a hidden ritual to reclaim a body that had been possessed. Yuthan asked where the book was. Chiranosuke replied that it was somewhere in one of the rooms at Korei dorm, but he didn't know exactly which one. He encouraged Yuthan to go find it. Yuthan wasn't entirely convinced about Nandala Gondala, but regardless he had to look for it. To him, the most suspicious room was room 102, which belonged to Ito. He phased through the door and entered her room. It was 9:08 a.m. Ito wasn't there, but the room was still a mess. Yuthan started searching every corner of the room and went through some stacks of books. Her computer was still on and playing news footage about the bus hijacking that had happened earlier that day. Just then, Ito walked out of the bathroom. She stretched her arms, and as she did, her shirt lifted slightly, unintentionally revealing her underwear. Yuthan accidentally saw it, gasped in shock, and quickly apologized before turning away in a panic. But since he was a spirit, his body slipped through the wall into the next room. As luck would have it, the person in the next room was wearing a short skirt and happened to be jumping up and down, which once again caused her underwear to become visible to Yuthan. This second unexpected incident triggered a nosebleed, a clear sign that he was overwhelmed. In that moment, he unleashed his full power strong enough to destroy Earth's atmosphere. And as a result, a massive disaster occurred that ended life on the planet. Now floating somewhere in space, Yuthan was completely lost and confused. Chiranosuke appeared and told him there was something important he had forgotten to mention. Whenever Yuthan became too stimulated and lost consciousness, it would cause an asteroid to crash into Earth and wipe out humanity. Yuthan couldn't quite grasp what Chiranosuke meant. Chiranosuke went on to explain that everything had happened because of Yuthan's actions. Every time he saw a girl's underwear, his excitement would reach its limit, unlocking his hidden superhuman abilities. But if he got overly stimulated while already at that peak, the limit would break and he would pass out, which would then trigger the global catastrophe. Yuthan was still unsure how this had anything to do with falling asteroids, but Chiranosuke told him not to overthink it. The point was simple: if Yuthan didn't want humanity to be destroyed, then he had to avoid getting overly stimulated. Chiranosuke urged him to fix what had happened, to go back in time and start over. According to Chiranosuke, spirits weren't bound by the same rules of time or physical form, especially since Yuthan no longer had a body. Yuthan didn't fully understand everything Chiranosuke was saying, but Chiranosuke encouraged him to return to the flow of time and work to create the greatest happiness and a peaceful future. Yuthan was sent back to the exact same moment, 9:08 a.m., right when he had first entered Ito's room. He heard Ito's voice coming from the bathroom. Remembering what happened last time, he quickly turned away and phased into the room next door, room 101, where he saw Mikatan reaching up for a book on a high shelf. She had to jump a few times to grab it, which unintentionally exposed her underwear again. Yuthan quickly turned his head away, doing everything he could to avoid seeing her. He then remembered what he was actually there for: the book. Maybe Mikatan was also looking for Mandala Gondala. Yuthan decided to search under the bed. Unexpectedly, just as he looked under it, Mikatan's face appeared there too. She had also been checking under the bed for her book. Their faces ended up extremely close to each other. This moment reminded Yuthan of what happened 9 months ago when they met for the first time. Back then, they had bumped into each other and dropped all the stuff they were carrying. Mikatan had kindly helped him gather everything up. Seeing Yuthan completely frozen in awe, Mikatan had asked if they had met before. At that moment, Meika, who lived in room 201, mentioned that Mikatan was a member of the idol group She's May, which would explain why Yuthan seemed so captivated by her. That was when they first properly introduced themselves. Meika then asked Mikatan what she had been holding on to so tightly the entire time. It turned out that Mika-tan was holding Yuthan's shorts. She instantly let go of them and apologized. Suddenly, someone knocked on Mika-tan's door from outside. It turned out to be Chichibu Rabura, the resident of room 202, who had come by to borrow some salt. Mika-tan asked if the salt was for dinner, and Rabura replied that ghost hunting could also be considered a form of dinner. Rabura had just received a request to exorcise a spirit the next day. Mika-tan then asked what kind of salt was typically used to expel spirits. Rabura said that any kind would do as long as the intent was strong enough. Yuthan, who was nearby, mumbled something about Rabura. As a spiritual medium, Rabura sensed it and asked Mika-tan if she had said something about her. Then Rabura handed over a book that Mika had borrowed, asking Mika-tan to return it. Coincidentally, that was the book Mika-tan had been looking for. Yuthan came closer to confirm if that was indeed the book she had been searching for. Suddenly, Mika-tan started reciting a passage from the book. However, it turned out that it wasn't the right one. Rabura guessed that maybe the books had been switched by accident. Yuthan headed to Meika's room. Meika was knitting while softly singing to herself. Yuthan spotted a book under the table and tried to grab it, but his hand kept passing through the object. Chirinosuke appeared and explained that Yuthan's spirit power was still weak. Spirit power determines how much a ghost can physically interact with objects. The higher the level, the more they can move heavier things, even make objects levitate. At his current level, Yuthan could barely knock over a pencil. To test it, Yuthan tried moving a ball of yarn. It rolled a bit and fell to the floor, confirming that he was still at the beginner spirit level. Meika picked up the ball of yarn and noticed the book under the table. She must have left it there while cleaning earlier. The book turned out to be a family photo album. Suddenly, a news broadcast appeared, reporting on a crime carried out by the Kyumei groups, suspected to be linked to a recent bus hijacking. At the same time, a specific song started playing, which prompted Meika to hurry out of the room. Rabura was also confused by the signal that came from the music Mika-tan had put on. Meika rushed into Mika-tan's room and said that Kaminishi had escaped. Rabura panicked and dashed out, forgetting the salt. Mika-tan called after her, and Rabura came back just to grab it. The book Mika-tan had been searching for finally showed up. It was near the door all along. It turned out to be a lyrics book. Meika explained that the song was a distress signal. She called out to Strange Juice. Mika-tan quickly got ready and transformed into Strange Juice. Mika-tan began changing into her superhero costume. Yuthan accidentally caught a glimpse of her while she was in the middle of changing and immediately shut his eyes in embarrassment. Now fully suited up, the hero's Strange Juice was ready. Meika, using her alias Pumpkin Chain, invited her to get moving. They passed through a hidden door under the table, which led into a long underground tunnel. Yuthan, still confused about what was going on, decided to follow them through it. They arrived in a large room filled with parked motorcycles. Strange Juice asked Pumpkin Chain what she was holding. It turned out to be a charm she was making for Strange Juice. Though the charm wasn't finished yet, Strange Juice took it anyway and rushed off. Unintentionally, some thread from Pumpkin Chain's outfit got caught on the charm. As Strange Juice sped off on her motorcycle, it pulled the thread and accidentally caused Pumpkin Chain's clothes to unravel. Yuthan was still in disbelief that Mika-tan was actually Strange Juice. Then, by accident, he turned and saw Meika standing there in only her undergarments. The shock triggered a powerful atmospheric reaction that caused another catastrophic explosion, wiping out humanity on Earth once again. One day, Meika, the owner of the Korei boarding house, walked into Rabura's room to ask for the rent. But Rabura, who was drunk at the time, said she couldn't pay it right now. She added that her exorcism business had been slow lately, and worse, people had started calling her a fraud. Meika, realizing that Rabura was going through a tough time, took the sake bottle Rabura was about to drink. Rabura broke down in tears and said everything was falling apart because she didn't have any spiritual powers. Even though she came from a long line of temple priests, she added that she was the only one in her family with tan skin. Meika told her that had nothing to do with anything. Rabura responded by saying ghosts weren't real. Meika casually pointed in a random direction, coincidentally right at Yuthan's spirit, and asked, "Then what's that?" Yuthan froze in shock. Rabura told Meika not to joke around like that. Meika laughed, revealing she was just messing with her. Yuthan was relieved to hear it. For a moment, he had thought Meika could actually see him. Suddenly, a loud scream echoed through the house. Neither of them knew what had happened. Meika quickly rushed downstairs to find out where the noise had come from. She knocked on Ito's door and asked about the sound she had just heard from inside. Ito admitted that the scream was hers. She said she had been feeling suffocated lately, so she screamed to refresh herself. But to Meika, it had sounded more like an animal. Ito laughed and said that couldn't be, especially since keeping pets at Korei House was strictly against the rules. Meika then heard another strange sound and asked about it. Ito said she was feeling itchy. Meika figured the noise could come from Ito scratching herself, which Ito confirmed, saying her skin was extremely dry. Meika noted that if that really was just scratching, it had to be pretty intense, and she started to worry. Ito then said she was just picking at a scab. Meika, being her usual naive self, believed her and commented that the scab must have been huge. The sound came again. This time, Ito claimed a bug had flown into her throat. Meika grew even more concerned, but Ito reassured her that she was fine. Though Meika didn't understand what was going on, she still suggested Ito go see a doctor. Meanwhile, Chiranosuke compared Yuthan's current situation to that of a baby who didn't know when to wake up for milk, when to finish, or when to fall back asleep. Yuthan suspected Chiranosuke was just trying to steer the conversation toward breasts. Chiranosuke explained that the point was that his spirit's time of awareness is unpredictable. Yuthan mentioned that the bus hijacking had happened on the 21st, but now it was the 23rd. He realized he had already lost 2 days. If he could travel back in time again like before, maybe he could fix things. Unfortunately, his current spirit level was too low. Instead of rewinding time, he could only end up landing in the Valley of Space-Time. Chiranosuke handed him a pudding shaped like a pair of hills. He explained that the Valley of Space-Time was like a dip between infinite timelines, like the space between two soft hills. With Yuthan's current level, even if he landed somewhere near the edge, he would just slide all the way down to the bottom. Chiranosuke used the pudding to help explain the concept visually. Yuthan got annoyed and asked why everything had to be explained with that kind of metaphor. Chiranosuke, unfazed, turned to his computer to show another video. But, as usual, the first clip that popped up was of cats behaving strangely. Yuthan was visibly irritated and suspected that Chiranosuke had shown it on purpose. They turned their attention back to the live feed from Yuthan's room. His physical body was opening a box. Chiranosuke was convinced there was something suspicious inside. But Yuthan wasn't concerned about the box, he only cared about who had taken over his body. Chiranosuke stated that whoever had taken it must be a spirit, otherwise there's no way they could have possessed it. Yuthan knew what he had to do, find the Nambala Gondola book. Once he found it, everything could be fixed. Chiranosuke tried to bring up the subject of breasts again, but this time Yuthan lost his patience and scolded him. Meiko was watching TV when a commercial came on about a book called The Science of Joy, which she had already purchased. The book claimed to use techniques developed by NASA to help people overcome various life challenges. Meanwhile, Rabara was playing with her turtle when she received a message from someone asking if she was a psychic. Rabara responded, confirming that she was indeed a psychic. The person replied, saying that it was a cool job, mysterious and fascinating. Rabara responded with a shy smile emoji. The person then said they would love to chat again sometime and mentioned how much they wanted to meet Rabara in person. This left her feeling unsure. She was worried that once they found out she was only a fake psychic, they might hate her. Yuthan's spirit, who had been observing, noticed how troubled Rabara looked. He remembered the times Rabara used to vent to him. Back then, she had ranted about a cocky IT company CEO who had disappointed her deeply. Yuthan asked if she had just been rejected again. Rabara said it wasn't rejection, she had simply seen that CEO walking hand in hand with another girl. Yuthan then asked if she was still a virgin. Rabara blushed and said she wasn't. Yuthan replied that he had heard from her older sister that Rabara had never even been in a relationship. Rabara got irritated and said her sister, who once live-streamed her own private life 24/7, was just making things up. But in the end, Rabara admitted it was all true. She had no idea why her sister suddenly went to study in the US. Now, Rabara didn't know who she could confide in anymore, so she playfully teased Yuthan by moving closer to him. Suddenly, Mikatan entered Rabara's room carrying an apple pie. She was startled to see Rabara lying flat on the floor and asked what had happened. Rabara sat up and commented that Mikatan's accent sounded like it was from Subaru. Embarrassed, Mikatan instinctively covered her mouth. Rabara pointed out that Mikatan's profile said she was from Tokyo and said it might not look good for she's May. Mikatan smiled awkwardly and insisted that Rabara try the apple pie she had baked, and she even added some extra cinnamon for her. Just then, the TV switched to an interview with Strange Juice about the recent bus hijacking. But before Strange Juice could say anything, Mikatan quickly turned off the TV. Rabara asked why she turned it off when the show was just getting interesting. Mikatan said she thought no one was watching it. She told Rabara how grateful she was that she survived the bus hijacking. One wrong move and Rabara might not have made it. Rabara explained that the whole thing happened because of Akina, Yuthan's older sister. She had visited their home and said she had to leave soon, so Rabara and Yuthan took her to the airport. On the way back, they got caught up in the bus hijacking incident. While Mikatan was tidying up some scattered cans, she accidentally bumped into Rabara's turtle. Startled, she flung it away. Rabara quickly caught the turtle, but it landed on her stomach and slipped under her skirt. Mikatan screamed and ran out of the room in fear. The turtle crawled out from under Rabara's skirt, lifting it briefly in the process. Yuthan, who witnessed it by accident, screamed in panic and vanished in a flash. Meika then came into Rabara's room and asked about the strange smell. Rabara pointed to a bottle of cinnamon. She asked Meika why she had come in. Upon seeing Meika, Rabara was surprised. She was wearing a dove mask. Meika asked Rabira how she looked. Rabira had no idea why Meika was dressed that way. Meika explained that she was studying the science of joy, but Rabira thought it sounded more like some kind of mystical magic. Meika was showing off a technique she called the joyful arts that she had been learning. She started singing and doing a strange dance. Rabira, unimpressed, commented that so this was what she called a spiritual technique. Apparently, all it took was a mask and a song. Rabira grew annoyed and told Meika to stop joking around. Meika, however, insisted that she was being serious and asked why Rabira was so angry with her. Rabira explained that she was dealing with a serious problem. Meika replied that was exactly why she came, but Rabira argued that if mastering spiritual arts were really that easy, she wouldn't be in such a mess. The two of them ended up arguing, and eventually, Meika stormed out of Rabira's room, leaving Rabira even more frustrated. Meanwhile, Ito noticed her phone ringing and saw that Yuthan was calling. She quickly answered. Yuthan told her that he had gone to her apartment the day before. He wanted to ask her opinion about a script and wondered if it wasn't time for her to return to school. Ito didn't want to talk about any of that and ended the call abruptly when someone knocked at her door. She opened it to find Mikatan standing there, holding an apple pie. Yuthan's spirit watched Rabira as she performed the joyful arts wearing a dove mask. She started singing and doing strange dance moves again. Afterward, she tried to use a technique to move a bottle with her mind. Yuthan's spirit heard a voice coming from inside the bottle and thought it could talk. It turned out to be Chiranosuke, who was inside the bottle. He asked Yuthan's spirit to respond to Rabira's attempt at moving the bottle. Yuthan remarked that his own spiritual level could only manage to move a pencil. Chiranosuke explained that the room was currently filled with cinnamon particles, which could enhance spiritual power in a big way. Yuthan didn't really understand the logic behind it, but Chiranosuke encouraged him to give it a try anyway. Frustrated, Rabira threw off her dove mask, realizing that playing around the spiritual arts was not something to take lightly. Yuthan's spirit gave it a shot and tried to move the bottle, but it suddenly shattered. His spiritual level had now reached an advanced stage. Both he and Rabira were shocked by what had just happened. Back at the apartment, Mikatan invited Ito to try the pie she had made. Ito asked if Mikatan had promised to leave right after dropping it off, but instead Mikatan insisted on eating it together. Ito felt annoyed since that hadn't been part of the plan. Mikatan then wondered if Ito was hiding something. Ito denied it and said everything was fine. Mikatan was eager to start eating but realized there were no forks on the table. She went to the kitchen to grab one. Just as she stepped away, a strange sound could be heard. She asked Ito about it and Ito claimed it was her own voice. She even tried to imitate the sound. Mikatan asked if she was really doing okay, especially since she had been isolating herself lately. Mikatan suggested she get outside and enjoy some sunlight. The strange sound happened again and Ito mimicked it once more, clearly trying to throw Mikatan off. Mikatan started to worry that something was off with Ito mentally or emotionally. Ito reassured her that she was fine and mentioned that she had even gone out earlier. Mikatan then tried to help tidy up Ito's hair, which was a complete mess. As she searched for a comb, she noticed something odd, some reddish strands on the comb that didn't match Ito's usual hair color. Ito got irritated and told Mikatan not to make baseless comments. Suddenly, Mikatan was confused by a salmon lying on the floor. Ito, without hesitation, devoured it. Mikatan was startled by how strangely Ito ate. But Ito explained that this was just how people in her family usually ate fish. Mikatan was startled again when she noticed something strange on Ito's back. Ito claimed it was just from scratching herself, but the shape of it seemed really unusual to Mikatan. Ito was annoyed by Mikatan's non-stop chatter and she said that spikes had started growing on her back like a stegosaurus. Mikatan was convinced it must be some kind of illness. Ito told Mikatan to leave her room, but Mikatan, seeing how strange Ito was acting, panicked and tried to calm her down. She screamed for help and said that Ito was in serious trouble. Rabira and Meika heard Mikatan scream and immediately rushed to Ito's room. At first they thought Ito was possessed by a fox spirit. Mikatan tried to explain to them that spikes had grown out of Ito's back like a stegosaurus. This, of course, was way more alarming than a simple possession. Mikatan believed that Ito must be evolving into some other kind of creature. She asked Meika if she had a device that could stop the evolution process. Meika naturally didn't have anything like that. Her stomach was in a magical pocket. Suddenly, the bear cub crawled out from under Ito's jacket and Ito became visibly embarrassed. Everyone was stunned to see a baby bear in Ito's room. Meika asked how the bear got there and Rabira questioned if pets were even allowed in the building. Ito claimed that the bear cub was her younger brother, Hikatomi Mui, a second grader in elementary school who had just started learning the 8 times table. Meika could tell Ito was lying, especially since she was the one who previously said that pets were strictly forbidden in Korei House. Ito then pointed out that Rabira also had a pet, but to Meika, having a turtle was different. It didn't make noise, cause trouble, or destroy the room. Mika-tan was confused as to why there was a baby bear here in the first place. Ito explained that she had found him in the woods during a rainstorm, crying alone inside a cardboard box. Meika told her to stop lying again, but Ito insisted that she was telling the truth this time. Meika suggested reporting the situation to the local clinic. As she got ready to leave, Ito stopped her and said she would not give the bear cub up to anyone, only she could understand what the little one needed. Mui looked visibly sad. Mika-tan pleaded with Meika to give them more time. She pointed out how wrong it would be to abandon a baby bear during a storm. Rabara agreed, noting that bears were not the same as dogs or cats. Mika-tan suggested it would be best if they first investigated how the bear cub ended up abandoned. Meika agreed but warned that if they didn't find any leads by the end of the year, she would report it immediately. Ito felt relieved and promised she would always protect Mui. Mui was happy and began tickling Ito. Meanwhile, Yuthan's spirit was watching all of this unfold. Later that night, Mika-tan met Meika out on the balcony. She asked Meika what the real reason was behind Ito deciding to quit school. Meika said she had already asked but never got an answer. Yuthan's spirit overheard this and remembered a conversation he had with Ito. Back then, he had been surprised to find out that the person who beat him in a video game was actually his neighbor. He asked Ito if she was skipping school just to play video games, since it would explain why she was so good. Then he asked where she went to school and again questioned why she was skipping it. Ito told him he was being insensitive and asked if he realized how rude he was being by bombarding her with questions like that. Yuthan apologized. Ito then shared that she had moved here because she never felt accepted. Meika pointed out that Ito's father was part of the city's education committee, and her dropping out could cause problems, especially since it might impact his chances in the upcoming election. Apparently, it was Rabara's cousin who introduced Ito to Korei House. Meika assumed that Ito must have been feeling very lonely. Suddenly, Mika-tan suggested they throw a party, especially since Christmas Eve was coming up. They planned to invite everyone in Korei House, including Ito. Even Yuthan's spirit wanted to be invited. Just then, Rabara showed up and said she had forgotten to tell Meika and Mika-tan something. She quickly placed an urn in front of them, put on a dove mask, and began singing and dancing. Rabara tried to summon some sort of power to show off to them. Yuthan's spirit tried to shatter the urn, but nothing happened. His powers only worked when there was cinnamon powder around. Rabara became sad, feeling disappointed that there were no ghosts after all. She had really wanted to be just as amazing as her mother and grandmother. To cheer her up, Mika-tan and Meika performed a joyful dance spell. It worked. Rabara cheered up again. Meika even promised to teach her the second part of the happy dance spell. Meanwhile, Shihaya Tomoto sent Ito a video link that was making the rounds online. The video showed a list of this year's victims. One of the names listed among them was Hikiotani Ito. She was shocked to see her own name there.